So Sarah, thank you for being with us today. I guess you and I have known each other for quite a while, and you're the Chief Exec of Nova Pangaea. But Sarah, I guess I wanted to open by, I guess I know your backstory, but where did your career all start out in those early days before you ended up here?
So as you're aware, and some others are aware, I was a professional athlete for 20 years. I was born and bred in Yorkshire, in North Yorkshire, come from a farming background, so an agricultural background, and, had a passion for cue sports, which I took up at a very, very early age in my teens. And lo and behold, I was quite good at it. So I, around 12, 13, I won my first title. And I've, had a very illustrious career, very privileged career, I think. I've been very, very fortunate to win over 80 titles, world and European titles, represented England. And, from a very, very early age, I knew how to, I suppose, do deals and look at how to develop relationships and partnerships. I was promoting myself as an athlete very, very young, and I had no fear, so I remember, as a youngster in my teens, sending off my first ever sponsorship proposal to a multinational. So, no fear whatsoever, putting together this package and this strategic partnership of how I would add value to their business. It's not something I was taught. I went to a small sort of agricultural college, coming from a farming background, and a third generational family business. Generally, you're going to take over the business. So my road was already paved, but I suppose I rebelled, and I wanted to travel. I wanted to move abroad. I wanted to continue my career as a professional athlete. And, again, it took me to America around, early 2000s, just before, I went to Canada first. I got an opportunity, a big sponsorship deal. I'd already won 80 times by then. But I took up the opportunity, moved out to Canada, and then my mum was diagnosed with breast cancer for the first time. And so that was, that sort of hit me quite hard. And I returned and looked after my mum, got my mum through that. And then after about a year, I returned to the circuit. But it's, as a professional cue sports athlete, and in America, it's a mainstream sport. Over here, one of the reasons why I ended up going to America was, I wasn't, I was handicapped when I entered tournaments because there was a couple of the girls that were so good that the other players wouldn't play. So my talent wasn't embraced in the UK, and that was originally why I went over to America. And then, the transition into business was really seamless for me because, again, I was very early age promoting myself as a cue sports, I was working with the likes of Puma, Monsanto, Motorola, Mercedes-Benz. I had big corporates that I was working with on a regular basis, and I didn't have an agent. I was doing that myself. So I transitioned into business it was very, very seamless. I was in the right place at the right time. And I'd already started sort of a business marketing consultancy very early on. And, lo and behold, Michael Jordan has a celebrity invitational event in the Bahamas. So my company was really sort of contracted to do a strategic partnership. I can't name the firm, the financial firm, on behalf of Michael's celebrity invitational and this financial firm at the start. So, when you start with somebody like the Michael Jordan Celebrity Invitational, then, an iconic brand like that, it's hard to go back from, to be quite frank. So I was very, very lucky. And then I worked with the likes of like Mia Hamm, Nomar Garcia Parra, Coca-Cola. So I did some quarterly recaps for them when they were launching certain products, and, obviously sponsorship deals within NASCAR, launching Vitamin 10, Tom Brady 2-week challenge, all in the US. And then then my company ran a $50 million sports platform, with the LPGA. So, running televised events on CBS Sports, developing those events from ground zero up, as well as, working, we had also had some Champions Tour events. So, quite heavily entrenched in sports and entertainment.
If we pause there.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the backdrop that we have here today. I mean, you never think that, and just to go back to there where you were an international pool player, did you ever think that you were going to end up in this environment?
I wanted to be a CEO.
Okay.
I knew from a very, very early age that what I wanted to do is run companies. And, sort of fast forward on through sports entertainment, went into healthcare with Arnold Palmer Medical Center, did some work in healthcare, life sciences, biotech, doing transformational stuff, turnaround.
But how did you actually break it? Because it's interesting. I know people say right time, right place, but was it because of the connections that you developed within sports that allowed you to connect into the business world? How did you make that transition?
I've always been a networker.
Okay.
I've always been, there's not one person on this earth that I cannot get to and won't get to. I'm relentless with it. So just remember that. Just keeping a high level network, as a professional athlete, you have that, chief execs, chairmen, board members, entrepreneurs. And so, I nurture those relationships, and I have done close to, over 20 years. Post that, did I leverage some of those relationships to get a start in business? I suppose it was just a bit of, I was in the right place at the right time. I had a good product offering. It caught the eye of some iconic brands, and, off we go type of thing. I was very lucky. I was very, very lucky to start how I did. But look, it goes beyond luck. You need, as an athlete, you need tremendous work ethic. You need drive. You need to be tenacious. You have ups and downs. And I've never given up. I've always thought to myself, right, people have said it's going to take years to get to where you want to be. And I said, not if you're smart about it. And if you bring everything together, relationships in the right place, you have a good product offering, you have a good vision for a company. I think, that sort of, that bodes well for you.
And you've obviously had a real competitive streak from childhood,
Very.
I mean, there's no way you can win pool titles if you haven't been as driven and competitive.
Yeah.
And,
if anybody, I can remember my family laughing at me when I first said I'm going to go on tour.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my mum laughing and saying, don't be silly, that's not going to happen. Well, 6 months later, I was on tour. And I had my own sponsors, and I didn't, like I said, I got those sponsors myself. I put together an offering for my sponsors, even in my teens. And, I've never looked back. And that whole sort of drive and work ethic, and I suppose, again, the business side of it came very natural to me. It's not like I went to school, for this type of thing. I've just self-taught really up until now, where I'm really, I went on tour very, very early. So education was put on the back burner, went to a small agricultural college. So you know, I've just been extremely fortunate. And when I look at where I am right now, I think to myself, I've been in oil and gas, I've been in mining.
Let's talk about the transition there. That's really interesting. So you ran the marketing company.
Yeah.
Before we go any further, did you get to meet Michael Jordan?
I've met Michael at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. That was very, very early on. So yes, had the privilege of meeting Michael, and
easily one of the most competitive guys you'll ever meet, I would assume.
Yeah, again, as a professional athlete, I've been very fortunate to meet a lot of, obviously what I would consider iconic. No, I'm a fledgling compared to some of these athletes, but I've had the privilege of working with them, and not just as an athlete, but actually delivering a service for them. So that was, again, I'm very, very fortunate to do that.
And that transition from the marketing into industry, how did you actually make that transition?
It's so it was again, sports, entertainment, healthcare. That was a significant transition, and how that transition itself. I was in the right place at the right time. I had an offering. I met with a robotic surgeon. This surgeon really liked the offering, and 10 years down the road, I had a phenomenal relationship with a very large health system called Orlando Health, and that developed from marketing to launching divisions, all the way to cross-border transactions into China. So I can't think of anything that is a trigger point. It was just, for me, it was just seamless. And then for industrial, as well as oil and gas, sort of natural resources, I was actually at the Kentucky Derby, on the sports front, with ESPN, and because ESPN were one of the producers, they were the producer of the Kentucky Derby, and I was a guest. And that's when I met a guy called Honourable Robert Hanson. So late Lord Hanson's son, an industrialist. So it was Robert that introduced me to natural resources. It was Robert that introduced me to oil and gas and the whole industrial sector. And we used to joke about it because he said, Sarah, I really want to get you involved in natural resource, really want you to get involved in industry. I was fascinated because I'd been sports and healthcare and life sciences, and now I'm into natural resources and looking at oil and gas assets and looking at mining assets in the Yukon in the middle of nowhere, and I was fascinated. So the ability to absorb a lot of information. So I always say, soak it up like a sponge. I had that ability to absorb. And even though it was a steep learning curve, I was competitive, just like here. This is a steep learning curve into chemicals. But ultimately, I want to be the best I can. It was Robert that introduced me to, these sectors. And he said, you do well in these sectors. You really love it. And I thought to myself at the time, I can't think of anything worse than go, from where I was to where I am right now. But I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it.
I mean, there's a couple of questions there, aren't there? Firstly, the technical side, how did you upskill on the technical? Because often many of these people have come through very long careers, whether it's steel, whether it's aggregates, gold, mining, oil and gas, to get to those senior positions. Did you ever feel like you were out of your depth, or did you? No,
never. Ultimately, every business model and operating model is the same. Doesn't matter that what you're selling or the complexity of the industry. I'm one person, and as a CEO, I think I don't know it all, and I'm quite vulnerable in that respect. And I think more CEOs should be like that, to be quite frank, because I have a great team. I can't do this without a great team. And I always sort of revert back to a quote from the late Steve Jobs, that what's the point in hiring really great people if you're not going to listen to them? And so as a CEO, you've got to have empathic listening skills, and you've got to understand that you're going to get it wrong, and you're not going to have all the answers. And that's why, for me, I'm one person. I can't do what I do without my team. And so, yes, when I first took on this, and when Northern Powerhouse, actually Simon Crabtree, approached me about this position, of course, I'd had several CEO positions in oil and gas and mining, group chief execs of group holdings in Alberta. And then my last chief exec role in the US was a meter and regulator station, so skid mounted, so technology for natural gas distribution. But then, I thought to myself, in a way, Richard, I wanted to return back to Yorkshire. And that's when I returned, and, it's been the best move ever. And it was Simon that basically called me up, and he said, "How do you fancy running a chemical plant?" And I said, I want to know more about it. And again, I've worked with geologists, I've worked with geophysicists, I've worked with PhDs. I'm working with a chemist right now, with Dr. Neil Hindle. And I'm not going to, we work as a team. Mm. So do I have to know everything? No. But do I know do you need to have a really strong business model, and a business model that's transferable, an operating model that's transferable in this day and age of digitization, which is, obviously a big disruptor for chemicals and for the industries that I've been in, more traditional industries. So it is a steep learning curve. I'm 11, 12, nearly a year in. I know a little bit, yeah. but again, it's working with people, getting the best out of people. That's something I'm really passionate about as a CEO.
So for those that don't know Nova Pangaea, I guess I know what you do here, but what do you do at Nova Pangaea, and why are you here?
So we are right. So what Nova Pangaea does is, and I'll put it in very, very simple terms, is we're a continuous sort of a thermochemical process that takes plant residues, such as, in Yorkshire, you see abundance of wheat straw. So we take any type of forestry or agricultural residues, wood chips, sawdust, all the way from wheat straw to sugarcane bagasse in India or Pakistan or the southern states of US. And we process it through what we are actually sat in front of our IP, which is the fast pyrolysis unit. There's actually 3 phases of REFNOVA, and REFNOVA is a sort of a proprietary patent technology. We take that woody and agricultural residue. So I wouldn't consider it a waste. It is a waste product, but it's also for the forestry industry. It's taking a low value product, and it's basically extending the value chain of that product and creating at the end a higher value product. So 3 phases. The front end of REFNOVA is our pre-treatment technology. So that basically is taking wood chip or taking that woody or agricultural residue, sort of using a very mild diluted sulfuric acid, and we create the C5 and C6 sugars from that. Phase 2 is the washing of the product, and phase 3 is what you've just seen in those barrels over there. You take it through phase 2, which is washing and drying of the product, and then phase 3, which is our fast pyrolysis, over 500 degrees, rapid. So whereas competitors is using more of a sort of a batch process, it takes hours, it takes days. REFNOVA is a continuous process, so 3 phases that are continuous and within minutes, not hours or days. So we create drop-in for biofuels, biopolymers, and biochemicals. So obviously in the UK, DFT, the legislation, we're hoping that E10, there's an E10 consultation right now, hoping that E10 will be implemented at the pump next year. And, you know, that's not saying that we are a UK based, we are obviously UK headquartered, but we are a company that will be selling this technology, the REFNOVA technology, globally, and we've already started that process. So our top tier markets, US, Brazil, and China, and that sort of, and it's a sort of an overarching sort of licensing model with an underpinning sort of engineering feasibility design. So it's a very, very interesting, a nice business model, highly scalable at this point, and we're in that sort of commercialization, accelerated commercialization into that operating phase as we speak.
What's the market like for biofuels? I guess I remember back to the days of even other facilities down here on Wilton where, you know, you'd have different governments heavily subsidizing fuels, and it became a very complex market to try and, you know, take any new products to market. Do you see much of that in terms of how other countries are operating?
I think right now it's, you know, when we look at, if we look at other countries such as, you know, the US, China and Brazil, they're, you know, very, very open mind. That's already sort of, ethanol is already heavily entrenched in those markets, and it's at the pump already with a higher blend. One of our differentiators for REFNOVA is we are not only we're continuous, so, but we don't use costly enzymes, and we use the food versus fuels aspect of our technology. So we're not fighting with food crops. We're taking what is a plant or woody residue and creating value from it. So for biofuels, we're not, you know, for REFNOVA itself, you know, we actually fix the indirect land use. So we don't have to grow more food crops to create more biofuel. We actually mitigate that. So we actually take that sort of that waste or that plant residue and create value from it. So I think right now with biofuels, it is right here, right now. For us, if we look at, you know, the Boris Johnson's 10-point plan, if we look at electrification and looking at hydrogen, for me, we need a more balanced approach, and biofuels is a big part of that. And biofuels is a big part of reaching our sort of net zero. And I think the misconception is with biofuels that it is here, right here, right now. It's here in the UK, and it's already at the pump and higher blends in the US and Brazil and China. So, you know, if we are to meet our net zero goals, we do need a balanced portfolio. Biofuels is a part of that. Biofuels doesn't require any additional infrastructure, whereas, you know, we will get there with electrification, we will get there with hydrogen, but there's a considerable amount of infrastructure that's required. And so, you know, biofuels can be just dropped into existing fuel. So I see, you know, yes, there are incentives for biofuel, and that does play into the economics. But for REFNOVA, we also produce high value products such as the, you know, we've just shown you the lignin char that we produce out of phase 3 can be further processed to activated carbon. So that's a relatively small market, but it's a growing market. Obviously, we're in a pandemic. Air filtration's critical. Water filtration is a big market. Depending on the quality of the activated carbon, it's anywhere between, for the char, it's anywhere between 200, 300 pounds per tonne, all the way up to 5,000-6,000 pounds per tonne, depending on the quality of activated carbon. There's multiple markets for that. So it is, you know, the product range out of REFNOVA is quite diverse, and there's a lot of opportunity. We haven't even touched on sustainable aviation fuel, decarbonisation of maritime and shipping industry. We are in discussion. So for me, the world's our oyster for our REFNOVA technology. It's, it's very unique. It does, the economics in the past with other companies has been a lot of companies that have fallen short. We are, for me, I'm very, very confident we're over the hump in regard to economics and scalability for this technology. And we've, like I said, we've already started that commercial process. So I think, biofuels is here to stay. And again, it will play a big part in that road to net zero, because obviously we don't have the infrastructure for electrification and hydrogen yet. So that will take some time.
I guess you touched on it, but how large is the opportunity for a company like Nova Pangaea?
So our target market is over 500 billion. So, we're looking to, and we're only looking at, when we look at these markets, we're looking at co-locating REFNOVA. So a brownfield opportunity, so to speak. We could look at greenfield, and we believe the economics will work from an energy efficiency and GHG from standpoint. We are proving that. But the immediate opportunity is to co-locate REFNOVA into an existing sawmill or into an existing ethanol plant. And so that is our sort of main focus right now, is the ethanol market, with, again, these high value products such as activated carbon that we produce off our fast pyrolysis unit. So it is a very large market. So when you have that level of diversity and opportunity from an executive team, we've got to stay extremely focused, because you can be a little bit of a kid in a candy store type of thing. But we have a target market. We'll start to open up those target markets next year.
So what are the main challenges for a business like yours? Clearly you're going through all the pilot, testing, making sure the processes work and are commercially viable. But once you've done that, what is the next challenge in terms of taking the business forward?
The next again, these type of processes, specifically cellulosic technology, so second generational feedstocks, such as sort of the woody and agricultural residues, incentives, government incentives, policy does have a big impact. And like I said, there's been quite a few failures of this technology. And so for us, the most critical point is for us to get to the next stage. And we obviously need to raise more funding, which we're doing as we speak. It's getting the scalability and the economics to work, as well as obviously working on continuous optimization of REFNOVA and seeing that the yields balance with the economics and the capital expenditure for REFNOVA. So that's something that we're working on obviously right now. And we are a company that is continuously evolving and continuously innovating our technology. So we're always looking for, a REFNOVA 2. We're always looking to create efficiencies from a CapEx perspective to make the internal rate of returns, to increase the internal rate of returns to the customer. So challenges is obviously the financing, being able to deliver on the amount of commercial traction, which is, one of the reasons why we brought forward our funding, because we've seen a significant amount of commercial interest in REFNOVA. So without the funding, without the partnerships, without the strategic partnerships, there's a lot of companies that fail. And, this is something that for Nova Pangaea, we're at that sort of critical stage of, we're very, very close to proving out, to proving out scalability and economics. And, we have a very, very diverse and very, a significant commercial pipeline. So it's now down to execution and optimization of the plant. And again, getting our first reference plant in order to roll out a full licensing program. So we're hoping that we can, we can secure a first license opportunity or a first partnership of REFNOVA in the UK, and those trials are underway as we speak.
Thinking back to the start of our chat, you having worked in America and now being back in the UK, do you see differences in how business is conducted over there?
Oh, yes.
Compared to over here? But
yeah.
I guess to see it from your side, having held similar positions on both sides of the pond, it would be interesting.
Yeah, it's, so one of the reasons why I wanted to return, I can remember when I made the decision, I came over with my partner, and it was, we hadn't been over for 2 years. And there was just, I felt like the region was just alive of opportunity, from entrepreneurial businesses to SMEs to energy to innovation to digitization. Just so much energy, so much going on in Yorkshire. And I sort of thought, and I thought to myself, I've spent 18 years in North America, and it's a completely different mindset. It's 24/7. It's, the day is never ending. I got really burnt out. I went from, I had a number of chief exec roles, a number of businesses, very challenging businesses in very challenging jurisdictions around the world, working with Robert, which was an eye-opener across many different industries. It is a completely different work ethic in America. It's 24/7, and you burn out a lot easier, and there was no sort of work-life balance. It was just constant. And I came back, and I was it just felt right. I came back and I felt it, for me, I fell back in love with Yorkshire again, but also, I'd been away from my family for a significant period of time. But again, I just saw an opportunity back here. I thought, this is it. I need to come back. I need to return. There's a lot that I can do for the region with my network, with my experience working abroad, bringing that back to the UK. Another part of it as well, I remember, when I made the decision to move back, people were saying, well, you're moving back, so whereabouts in London will you be? I used to get so frustrated because there's more to England than London, and this area is, it's got so much sort of industrial heritage, the north of England, but nobody's heard of it. And that sort of, in a way, aggravated me and maybe brought my competitiveness out of me a little bit. And I thought to myself, right, it's time for this region to be put on the map. It is completely different over there. There is a better work-life balance here. For me, coming back, I've been very fortunate. Obviously, Nova Pangaea is backed by some phenomenal investors, including Northern Powerhouse and Par Equity, Cambridge Angels, and some high net worths. And, I just think, for me, and this is something actually I was quite passionate about when I met with Rishi Sunak, that we need to keep British innovation moving in the right direction. We need to keep it British. And we need to keep innovating. I'm quite passionate about that. I'm quite passionate about the industry, and the region, but also the fact that quite proud that we are a British innovation. And I see a lot of opportunity for this part of the world.
I'm going to ask you this question anyway, but the whole being a female chief exec in quite a male-dominated world, I mean, you must have had that in the States as well as back here. Yeah. How have you found that over the years?
That's been a struggle. Of course, I've gone into, healthcare and sports. it's a lot easier to sort of enter into those type level jobs, executive roles. Of course, I would choose industries that are very traditional, and there's very few female chief execs. I've always wanted to be sort of a leader and not a follower. So when somebody would say, you know, you can't do something, that's the best thing that they can say to me, because I will do it. And I remember I won't name names, but there was a couple of people over my career who said, yeah, you're never going to get that done. You're never going to, you know, if so-and-so can't do it, you're not going to be able to do it. And you are a woman. That to me is the best thing that anybody can say to me. So it has been difficult. It has been difficult being taken early on in my career, taken seriously. But, you know, at the end of the day, you just, I love to mentor new talent as well. I love to mentor, you know, girls that have an aspiration to be an executive or be in a leadership role. It's not for the faint-hearted. It helps if you're from Yorkshire, for sure, because I'm fairly direct, as people will know me. But it has been a real struggle. And I know that I've had, of course, as being a chief exec, you're going to have failures, but it's what you learn and what you take from those failures, and what you learn. You learn from your failures, and you're going to fail. It's inevitable. Whatever your gender is, you're going to fail. Anybody that tells you that, you know, they've never failed, then, you know, don't believe them, to be quite frank. That's what makes you who you are right now, right here and right now. So I would never want to discourage anybody from taking sort of, especially, you know, aspirations as a young girl. For me, nobody was going to stop me, to be quite frank. Even as you know, in my sport and playing against the guys, I was one of the most successful players, female players on the men's circuit. Which was actually, I did a very interesting interview on the Golf Channel, where it was crossing over. It was they were actually covering me from, you know, from playing on the men's pro circuit as and sort of that crossing over, and then Michelle Wee when she crossed over on the PGA, Annika when she crossed over. So they did a really cool segment of Annika, Michelle, myself, and Tiger Woods, and just how difficult it is for a female athlete or a female chief exec to get, or, you know, female executive to get to the highest level that you can get to. But it just, again, I think there's a lot of traits and characteristics, and obviously you need a great work ethic and drive, and a good support system. I've always had, you know, a really good support system. So I think if you have that aspiration, you know, and your good support system, then you can accomplish anything you want.
And I did just want to ask you about that, because obviously my thoughts overall are that we do need more female chief execs, definitely in the world. So we hold large events, and frequently we'll have 5 out of 100 people that are female execs. And it's, you know, I think people often think we plan it that way, but it really isn't. It's just we don't have them, you know, to attend. And it's, but it adds a very different dynamic, which I think works very well, you know, and you look at the performance of business. Tell me about your mentors, because you obviously coming through professional sport in your early years through to working with Robert and other things through life. Have you always had mentors to guide you, or?
I was very smart, because you are who you surround yourself with. So I always thought to myself, I surround myself with really smart people, a lot smarter than me, you know, then I'll learn more. And again, I was like a sponge. You could put me in a situation, I'd just soak up a tremendous amount of information. I wanted to learn constantly. So obviously Robert opened my eyes to big multinationals, big business, big finance, crazy. You know, I've learned so much. You just don't know with Robert who you're going to be having conversations with. His network is absolutely tremendous. And, you know, his family built up went from a small haulage firm to a a massive, I think sold out for, I don't know, ridiculous amount of 8 to 9 billion. So Hanson PLC. So I've just been, nothing's ever, I have no fear at all with things. And I try and turn sort of that fear into more of a seeking and excitement.
And just to stay on that point, why do you have no fear? Because some people would say, well, is it just because you're in a comfortable situation, you've got nothing to lose, or?
Yeah, no, I'm not in a. No, it's. I suppose it comes from being a professional athlete and winning over 80 times. You can win once, you win twice. You can, but to win multiple times, it takes a certain mentality, drive, ambition. Again, Robert will say I'm just absolutely relentless when I get my head set. We're very similar personalities. We just never give up at things. So if somebody, again, if there's somebody I need to get to from a networking perspective, trust me, I will get to that person. If we need to accomplish, we obviously have a strategic plan with NPT and Nova Pangaea. We will do it, because I believe that there's always a way to do it. And, if you have good people, you surround yourself with good people. And I have a really phenomenal team. I'm probably an absolute pain in their backside at times, but if you have a good team, I think you can accomplish anything. So I'm a big believer in that. That's just my mantra. Is I don't know where it comes through. Just don't trust me. As an athlete and an individual in an individual sport, you can beat your opponent just by. I had a practice routine that I used to do every time. And inside I was absolutely a nervous wreck, but exterior wise, you wouldn't be able to tell. And I did that same routine every time. And 80% of the time you can beat your opponent mentally before you even hit a ball. And that's generally what you can do. So I think the years of being sort of maybe fear inside, but on exterior, you couldn't really tell that I was nervous. As sort of transition, that fear, relentless drive and passion to be the best has transitioned in business.
It's really interesting to take that theme of this interview all the way through, the competitive nature and how that drives you now in business, because it clearly still does to this day.
Yeah.
If I'm sat here in 3 years' time, what would be the best achievement for Nova Pangaea?
If I hopefully we're doing some type of, we're in the US. We've got our first reference plant, maybe a second underway, and maybe it's a bit warmer than on this. No, really entering into the US, into our top tier markets. A reference plant in the UK. That's our plan. That's my focus right now. Is building one of these, a 4-ton or a 12-ton in the UK, and that will come in the next couple of years. So hopefully we'll having a walk around of REFNOVA somewhere close by, I hope.
And in terms of your development and your journey, have you still got things that you'd like to achieve in business?
Yes, there's a lot, So, I started my education a lot later in life. So I'm on my educational. I love to learn. I'm a big reader, and I completed some leadership and management over at Wharton School at University of Pennsylvania. So I'm on, and now I'm in the middle, about halfway through my MBA. And I wanted to do my MBA at a Yorkshire university. I'm doing it at Bradford. So that's going to keep me, I'll continue to learn, because that's what I love to learn. I think as a chief exec, as a individual, the evolution of the company, you've got to evolve people, you've got to evolve, you've got to continue to evolve to stay relevant and stay current. Right now I'm doing a 21st century MBA. It's all about digitization. It's all about sort of managing people, understanding people, digital marketing, so as well as economics in this vast, in a world of changing sort of business and operating models, working in that sort of applying digitization and sort of industry 4 technology to chemical processes in order to be, obviously more efficient. We are in a pandemic. Business is different now. Will business ever be the same again? I don't know. Well, I think we need to be smarter, and we need to continue to evolve as individuals and as businesses.
Absolutely. Sarah, if anyone's watching this or listening into this interview that we're having, is there anything that you would like people to do, either to add to your network or to add to Nova Pangaea, in terms of whether it's resources or offerings or people with very deep pockets to back complex ventures?
Well, we are on a fundraise. We are raising up to 5 million right now. We're looking at, strategics. We're looking at corporate venture arms. We're looking, we're not just looking in the UK. We are looking, globally. Grant Thornton is leading our process right now. We're also looking open to, joint ventures and, again, strategic partnerships where, we can build our first reference plant. As I said, we are on the cusp of cracking this cellulosic technology. And, it's a proud thing for this to be in our region. And, again, the misconception of biofuels, the fact that, this is required to deliver net zero, and it lives alongside electrification and hydrogen. And we are, biofuels is a drop in. So, from a infrastructure perspective, it's zero. So yes, we're on a fundraise. We're looking for strategics. We're looking for corporate venture arms to back us on this next phase of the business. And then, also, I think for me, it's educating the consumer, educating corporate, the investor community on the need for biofuels, the need for this type of technology, and the need for to take something that's generally sort of a plant or agricultural residue, a forestry residue, and add value to that and extend the value chain for our customers. So, this is a critical part of the shift towards net zero. Biofuels is here to stay, but it's not just, that's one part of our business, biopolymers and biochemicals, decarbonising, not just going beyond transportation, sustainable aviation fuel, maritime, as well as, plastics is in a critical state right now. And so looking at biodegradable options, and that's something that REFNOVA can deliver.
Mm-hmm. No, completely. And I think, just for anyone that hasn't geographically arrived at the site where you are today and the environment in which you work, you're working in amongst one of the massive chemical, hubs of the world, really, in terms of what is happening here on Wilton. So it's a great story. Yeah, no,
Wilton International is, it's a great home for REFNOVA. It's a great home for MPT. We are a fledgling compared to the multinationals that's on this site. But again, we are a small, quite agile, with a huge appetite and aspiration to crack this technology. And from an economic and scalability perspective, which again, it's right here at Wilton International in Redcar, in the mighty car. So that's something that we can be very, very proud about. And again, I have these conversations on a daily basis with investors globally. Whereabouts are you? We're in Redcar. Where is that? Is that in London? Where is that? That aggravates me. We've got to put this region on the map, and I think we're heading in the right direction.
Completely. I've got to ask this again, Sarah. If you weren't doing all of this, which I appreciate is different to where your career started, do you think you'd ever go back to any competitive sports or anything totally different?
Absolutely not. I can't even think of anything worse. You know, it's funny because I've had the opportunity, and I may for the right tournament, if Nova would embrace it. But I'd only go back for one tournament, and my aspiration I wouldn't do it unless I thought I could win it. I'm not interested in second place or top 5 or what. I'm interested in winning it. And so I'm not going to put throw my hat back into the ring unless I've got, you know, unless I know that I've got a good chance to win. But no, you know, I've got, you know, that competitive sports aspect of it is gone for me. It's transitioned into business. And, you know, like I said, I've found that my colleagues, maybe it's rubbing off on my colleagues a little bit with Dr. Neil Hindley, is quite competitive, he's a big ultra marathoner. And so we have a saying at the Nova Pangaea, and I always say to Neil, you know, can we do this? And he says, yes, we can. So now we call him Bob the Builder. Yes, we can. But no aspiration to go back to competitive sport. I think I've got enough competitiveness and drive to drive the entire Wilton International site, to be quite frank. And my focus is on this technology.
Well, Sarah, it's been absolutely delightful to spend some time with you this morning.
Thank you very much.
You know, I'm looking forward to coming back to hear more about it.
Yeah,
and, you know, if anyone is listening into this, you know, please get in touch with Sarah and add whatever value you can. So, Sarah, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.